What about the killers? How they're portrayed? Because Myers and Voorhees, they're seen more as oh, he was a troubled lad when he was young. Like Myers, the literal opening scene is him killing his sister.
Yeah,
But he never really grew up from that. You had like Voorhees, who, well, in the first one, it was his mother who was the killer, wasn't it?
yeah.
Unless I'm remote. No, yeah, she was. But then afterwards, he was there, sort of taking up the mantle, and yeah, isn't that a sort of, oh yeah, the person is a bit odd, so this person had a rough childhood, so therefore that's making them like go off and do all this killing and that, as opposed to someone who is more well-rounded, more in a upper place in society. Like say American Psycho, someone like Patrick Bateman. Uh, like no one will look at him and think, oh yeah, he's a weirdo. I mean, you would from his voiceover, but people just on the street, you wouldn't look at him and think, oh yeah, he's a killer. But if you look at someone who is seen as a social outcast, you might think, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not sure. Before we don't really see Michael Myers' life before he kills his sister, do we
No,
really?
suggested in the film that Michael Myers did it because he is, pure evil. He is the boogeyman.
Yeah,
Mm.
Still be that even as a kid.
yeah,
So you don't really get the backstory. I mean, Rob Zombie went in on the backstory angle, which I honestly don't mind, because I think if you are going to reimagine an older film, you might as well just do something different with it, regardless.
yeah, yeah. Going to the Rob Zombie film, I don't mind it, but at the same time, it kind of ruined a bit of mystique for Michael. Like you give him all this backstory, it's just like, oh well, you've given him like character development to develop into this, you know, pure evil figure. Whereas in the original film, it's kind of a mystery. You kind of just, or the only thing you can reference to Michael Myers is that he was pure evil. Like in the remake, you could say, oh, he was pure evil, but he also had a rough upbringing and blah blah blah. His mum was a stripper and stuff like that. I think that kind of takes the mystique away. What do you guys think?
Well, for me personally, like I can separate it because while they may be part of the same franchise, they're ultimately very different films on their own right. Um,
Yeah,
I'm not projecting any of what Rob Zombie did when I think of John Carpenter's Halloween films and vice versa. The same with
okay,
David Gordon Green's new iteration. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, well, now I know what happens in Halloween 2018, so that makes me view the 78 film differently. I can keep them separately, but I can understand why other people would not be able to do that, especially if you're very like you have a real connection to these films or these characters.
yeah,
Yeah, it seemed a bit like explaining something that you didn't need to, but at the same time, it was shown in a grotesque way, which sort of like there's either two ways to do it. You either imply it or you go full in on it and you make you go, ugh. And going the more explicit route, with the killing of the rat, was it? It had that moment of because you had like a close up of him, like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and then you look down and it cuts to what he's doing. It's like, whoa. I thought that was very effective, personally, and I feel that the whole connection there, you kind of knew from the beginning that, well, Laurie was there, which again, it wasn't in the original, but it had that sort of precursor to it. Like, I feel the viewing experience is enhanced by watching the previous ones, which meh, but watching it on its own, it feels lesser in a way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. I think most people watch the remake because they're fans of the original. Like personally,
Mm.
obviously, there's going to be that small crowd that just go and watch the remake and have never seen the original.
Mm.
But like moving on to Jason Voorhees as well, which we haven't really discussed yet. Yeah, well, he wasn't introduced till the second film. I feel he's more of a supernatural being than Michael Myers. Like Michael Myers, I think he's kind of human, but he's not at the same time. But Jason Voorhees, he's just more. He's much more supernatural of a being. I
Raising
think
from the
anyway.
literal dead.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. So what do you think to him as a killer or as an antagonist?
He's great. he, he's. I think he. I don't know. He's. I think I don't. Hold on. I need to. Somebody else talk because I need to reconnect my thoughts.
Elliot, we've had
Yeah.
Freddy versus Jason. What about Michael versus Jason? Who would win?
Who would win? Oh well, I don't think I want to see that anyway. Um, I'm not super interested in the slasher crossover thing.
Fair.
Look, Jason's built like a brick shithouse, man, and he's basically a zombie. And like he can crush people's skulls with his bare hands. Like he's fun to watch. So by sheer strength, yes, probably Jason Voorhees would absolutely destroy Michael. But Michael's got a more ethereal quality to him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in a way, but I think people will cheer for Jason more than Michael because, as I said earlier, a lot of people seem to cheer for the killer rather than the people getting slaughtered on screen. And I think Jason has more of that connection with audiences than Michael Myers, I think, because, he just does these otherworldly things like crush skulls, as Elliot said, and, do all these brutal killings and stuff. I thought it was more refreshing in, like, a lot of people seem to hate the remake of Friday the 13th, but I thought the way he killed people in that film was much more refreshing compared to, like, the sequels.
Mm.
Like he runs, like, he never used to run in the films, did he? But, like, in, like, the remake, he ran for his victims, which I thought was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. What about the what's it? Freddy Krueger. Also following the stereotype of the physically deformed uh, outsider being the killer. But he was also a nonce, wasn't he?
Okay, so the thing with Freddy Krueger, this is very interesting. So Wes Craven in the original drafts for Nightmare on Elm Street, and by the way, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite slasher film. We'll get to that at some point. But Freddy Krueger was intended to be this child molester turned child killer, who was obviously killed by all the parents of Springwood, which is the town in the film. But something that happened during the making of Nightmare on Elm Street was the McMartin preschool trial, the alleged child abuse. So they pulled back on the like child molester angle with Freddy Krueger and made him, in the film at least, more a child killer than the other thing. And so the reason that he's deformed is because he was burned alive by all the parents of the Springwood Elm Street kids.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the nonce angle was more in the remake, wasn't it?
I didn't see the remake. I think they might have doubled down on the nonce angle in the remake. Yeah.
yeah. I wasn't a fan of the remake. I didn't think it had any charm to it. It has more dream sequences, but it's just like there's just jump scares, and it just felt very lazy to me. I thought Jackie Earle Haley was good as Freddy, though. I wish if they make another remake, like I think they should keep him as Freddy.
Mm. Well, isn't the horror not a lot of it not from what he does or how he kills people, but because you look at him and it's someone who's physically deformed, and it's like, ugh, is a lot of horror based on that?
I think we're going more into body horror territory there.
Sort of adjacent in a way, but mainly from the perspective of how scary is the killer, the antagonist, and how much of that is through their actions and how much of that is through their physical appearance.
I think it's the fact that he can violate you in your dreams, that he can get into the most intimate and singular, like insular thing that you can do, which is go to sleep where you are completely alone. The fact that he can come into your dreams and your nightmares and violate you in that, both like mentally and physically at once, I think is a much more terrifying idea than what he looks like, although that is terrifying in and of itself.
Yeah, I think what separates Freddy Krueger from other villains is you could argue that he has much more power over what he does than the other slasher villains. Like obviously characters can run from them and like, attack him and stuff. Whereas with Freddy Krueger, he's in their dreams. They've got nowhere to go, basically.
Mm.
And it's much more of a psychological effect he has on his victims as well, compared to Jason or Michael.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying with the whole deformed thing, Jeff, because I think this is more of a topic for like earlier films like Nosferatu. You could argue because Nosferatu, obviously, if you look at him, he's got characteristics of somebody that's what's the word, different, really. Somebody that's different because like obviously in Germany you had people antagonizing people with like deformities and stuff like that. Is that
Yeah.
what
Well, the
the
whole
issue was?
eugenics thing.
Yeah, and Nosferatu was kind of a reflection of that, I think. His
And
character.
exaggerated Jewish features, the whole stereotypical big nose, or they're like a rat, and therefore play more into that and create something that it's like a snake that eats itself. You create media that plays into the stereotypes, and that media reinforces stereotypes, and stereotypes enforce the medium. Just doesn't exist within a vacuum, does it?
Yeah, I mean you are on something there because there's also Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he's considered deformed as well, isn't he? Well,
they also like the
characteristics.
whole cannibalistic thing,
Yeah,
which is sort of like was the Leatherface was wearing like mask made out of human skin, was it?
Yeah,
yeah,
legend style icon.
Yeah. So it's just sort of out of human skin. So that's sort of an intersection between body horror from a victim and the deformed or aberrant appearance of the killer. It's in that sort of interwoven bit there.
yeah. I think you've got a point there, Jeff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is actually based on a real life killer. Like I know the original trailer for the film said it was a true story. It's not really a true story. It's based on a real killer, though.
Ed Gein, yeah.
Yeah,
On my podcast, we did an entire episode about Ed Gein and the influence that he's had on horror films, on horror cinema.
yeah, yeah. I guess he took they took the whole concept of, because Ed Gein used to like wear people's skin and stuff like that, didn't he? And make clothing out of it, and that's what they took from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, wasn't it?
Yeah, like furnishings out of people's skin and their bones. He dug up graves and stole body parts. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of disgusting stuff that Ed Gein was doing.
Yeah. I mean, looking at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, I know of quite a few people that don't like it now because they think it's very outdated. But you've got to think back in the day, that was like very shocking for people, wasn't it?
He's trying to get a PG at the time, wasn't he?
Did it try to get a PG?
Yeah, argument being there was very little blood.
Yeah. Well, it was. I think it was trying to be as real as possible, wasn't it? Like it does have that kind of like gritty documentary look to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, shot on 16mm film.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. But it was also slapped with an X rating, which at the time was 2 ratings above PG because it was G, PG, R, X, and it was like, whoa, I'm getting X, I want a PG. And like, just looking at it, why do you think you get a PG? Well, then again, standards were different there, especially in like American films. You have PGs that are like heads exploding and boobs and things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, there was Star Wars with the chopped off arm and stuff, and that got a U.
Yeah. But then again, fantasy.
Yeah, that's the whole argument for that one. But yeah, so what do we think to Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a slasher film, which a lot of people have argued it was where it started, but obviously we've already discussed where it started. So what do we think to Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, firstly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre absolutely fucking slaps. So let's get that out of the way. I would put that in with the proto slashers. It's the one of the precursors to the slasher film, but not the like what we consider embodying all the more rigid tropes of the film. Yeah, if you like slashers, there's no reason for you not to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre at all. There's no reason not to.
I mean, if you're a massive fan of cinema in general, there's no reason to not watch it. Even though a lot of people say it's like outdated and stuff, I think it still has a significant place in cinema. Like, you've got to think, back in the 70s, this was shocking. Like, this was like this was like a lot of people thought this was like real. Thought it was real, what was happening on screen.
It is an absolutely essential film, whether it be in horror or outside of it, because this came out during the 70s when there was a wave of particularly paranoid American cinema. That was the big thing in American cinema, was these like paranoia films. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as much as it is a horror film, also embodies that. Like I don't see why you wouldn't watch something like Deliverance or even Taxi Driver and then also watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think you would have to watch all of them.
Yeah, and it's also like if you're a film student as well, it's a great way to learn filmmaking. I think by watching the film, because a lot of stuff in that film is very low budget, and like the actresses got like their shins bruised and stuff because they constantly had to repeat the same scenes where like the actress falling over on the bones and stuff like that. She got like massively bruised shins and stuff like that.
One of the actors the guy with chainsaw was like, oh yeah, don't worry, came within like 3 inches of his face. So
Wow, I didn't know about that one.
that could have ended up very poorly. But most of the actors absolutely despise the director after filming.
Yeah, that seems to be a case with a lot of them. But yeah, I think it's a great way to teach people about low budget filmmaking because it's just a prime example of how having a low budget can actually help a film, because it does certainly help the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when it comes to, you know, the gritty kind of low budget feel of it. Like it almost feels real.
Hmm.
I mean, I think the scariest thing about it is that it may not have happened, but it could happen, you know.
And some of it did, technically.
Yeah, well, technically, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we went to a local slaughterhouse and got a load of blood and animal carcasses.
That's just a regular day for you, isn't it, Jeff? So you